Our last speaker of the night, before we enter that discussion mode, is Melany Dobson. Melany is a leader in the cannabis startup ecosystem. She leads brand strategy and creative direction for Hudson Hemp, a beautiful endeavor in the Hudson Valley in New York, or just outside of New York, as well as its portfolio of brands, including the recently launched Treaty, which you should check out. In her previous role at Humboldt Brothers, a major cannabis company in the US, she gained expertise in local regulation, state legislature. She went on to co-found a cannabis labor firm, which designed plant-to-product systems, and work as a research and lab contributor at Hudson Carbon, tackling climate change. This allowed her to unite her focus on climate change and her commitment to regenerative land management. She is motivated by the potential of cannabis as the future of food, fuel, fiber, and medicine. Please welcome Melany Dobson.
Hello. It's really nice to be here, and I would like to thank Alex and Max from Dynamo, as well as Frank and Oak for having us. Revolution is not a one-time event. This is a quote by Audre Lorde that I keep returning to. And I challenge you to raise your hand if you feel you have ever been part of a revolution. This is something I have been thinking about in the context of hemp and agriculture. I have come to the conclusion that change is constant. Revolution is the result of a turnaround in mind and then of action. All life evolves by sudden explosions of novelty. And there is continuity in the power of a collective shift. So I share these photos because here's my dad in his 20s, and here I am in my 20s. And we're both doing the same thing. We're both drying cannabis in a room. And so this is the part of the process where you've harvested the plant and you're cutting it down and you're hanging it to dry so that you can preserve the integrity of all the buds. I grew up in agriculture. My father had an organic lettuce and heirloom tomato farm in Massachusetts. He was a pioneer in the farm-to-table movement, bringing imperfect veggies and lettuces to restaurants in New York and Boston in the early 80s. It was never my plan to follow in his footsteps. But when I got to Northern California and I entered my first cannabis grow, I never turned back. It was there I began to understand that cannabis cultivation in the US had been sustained during Prohibition by a group of grassroots individuals who risked their freedom for the plant. Over the past few years, this movement has been transformed into an industry that Hudson Hemp is a part of. Hudson Hemp was founded in 2017 out of the need to address the intersection between farming and culture, and the recognition that how we treat the land translates into how we treat each other. Hudson Hemp uses regenerative farming techniques and plant medicine for the betterment of our people, planet, and society. Right now, industry is damaging nature. The Earth's resources are being exploited, and we are taking more than we can put back into the Earth. Climate change evokes images of smokestacks, humans burning fuels. There's no question why this is. The single largest contributor of carbon emissions is power generation and heat generation. It's responsible for 1/4 of the carbon emissions that we put into our atmosphere. Often overlooked, though, is how we treat our land. Up to 40% of the Earth's surfaces are used for agriculture. The erosion of soil caused by tilling, intense grazing, and chemical fertilizers plays a significant role in the accumulation of greenhouse gas emissions in our atmosphere and the continued damage to our essential ecosystems. 13% of the total greenhouse gas emissions are caused by croplands and pastures. The climate is changing not only because we are burning fossil fuels, but also because soils, forests, and wetlands are being devastated. The Earth's surface and how we interact with it is our opportunity to reverse climate change. Regenerative agriculture pulls carbon out of the air and puts it back into the soil. Within this paradigm, hemp is our savior. Hemp has been grown for millennia as food, fuel, fiber, and medicine. It represents one of the oldest industries that humankind has created. Hemp removes soil contaminants and has been shown to improve soil conditions successfully in places like Chernobyl and other hazardous sites. Hemp can also produce as much paper from 1 acre as 2 to 4 acres of forests, but requires much less water and then much less chlorine in the post-processing. I would go so far to say that hemp can replace all petroleum, synthetics, and plastic within the next 15 years. Regenerative agriculture is the antidote to the Industrial Revolution. What is regenerative agriculture? Regenerative agriculture is agriculture that supports soil life. It goes beyond sustainability to replenish ecosystems, nurture biodiversity, and sequester carbon. Some of the regenerative agricultural techniques and technologies that we employ in our farm are tillage reduction, perennial crops and cover cropping, nutrient management with things like compost and compost teas, which we create from waste on our farm and ferment and then feed back into the soil, animal integration and grazing in a mindful way, so we're moving herds of different cattle throughout our farm so that they're eating up grass at the right points of the season, and keyline design, which honors the contour of the land and is a way to make sure that water is being shifted and moved in a way that allows the soil to actually capture and hold the water for future use. Some of the major tenets of regenerative agriculture are building soil, which allows for proper recycling of nutrients and carbon stores, and ultimately the preservation of a topsoil that is organic matter. When we build topsoil through embracing natural biodiversity, we pull more carbon dioxide into the soil. And what we're trying to do is create closed loop systems. In nature, there isn't waste. What isn't used by one organism is simply utilized by another. And there's a closing of loops that occurs. And if we tap into this, we can learn a lot about how to produce and design in a way that benefits not only us, but our world. Within all of this, justice is key to the restoration of farming and culture. We cannot dismiss that hemp is really key to bridging the health of the planet and the health of the people. And Hudson Hemp stands firm in our commitment to make sure that these benefits of hemp and regenerative agriculture extend to everyone. Many communities of color in the US were disproportionately singled out and penalized through the war on drugs. And so it is part of our mission to make sure that we're not just restoring our earth, but we're restoring the communities that have been damaged as well. Regenerative agriculture can create the next industrial revolution that supports healthy life on Earth for all. And innovation is learning to work with the intelligence of our planet, not against it. And when we do this, we create regenerative industry that will support healthy life on Earth. I'll also just mention that my slides had 2 different sets of fonts, which was not an intentional style move. I just don't think they translated to the screen. So thank you all, and I'm looking forward to the panel.